degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And you're very welcome along to tonight's Off the Ball. It is Richie McCormick here with you until 9 o'clock tonight. Busy show on the way, fresh from their victory over Galway that eliminated the tribesmen from the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. We'll be speaking to Dublin manager Matty Kenny on tonight's show. That's to come up after 7:30 tonight. We'll be trying to ascertain just what exactly is going on at Chelsea at the moment. They've lost their best player, they've lost their manager, they've got a transfer ban hanging over them, but Frank Lampard appears to be winging his way from Derby to West London. We'll talk to the Guardian's Dominic Fifield about events at Stamford Bridge. Plus, Paul Rouse is going to be joining us in studio after 8 o'clock to take an in-depth and very interesting look at the history of horse racing, no less. That's all to come on tonight's show. If you want to get in contact, you can do. You can text us on 53106 for 30 cents. You can tweet us as well at Off the Ball. Join in studio with Irish Independent's Dan McDonald. Good evening, Dan.
Hi, Richie. How are you?
The horse racing piece is going to be of much interest to you.
Yeah.
You might learn a thing or two.
My horse racing history will be slightly more colourful and checkered than what I assume Paul Rouse is going to give you in a very intelligent manner.
Well, you say that though. There is mention of shin kicking. There is mention of cudgel fights and just general fighting around horse racing.
Well, I suppose you think that I don't know what's coming up in the piece and how far back it's going, but I think the first Grand National was in something like 1847. Lottery, I think, was the horse.
We're going back further than that.
Going back even
we're
further.
Going back to the 1600s tonight.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously the origins of it. And but Paul Rouse used to be my lecturer. You see.
Oh, was he?
I did a module on history of sport in UCD. It was like bloody brilliant, you actually got to do something, because I did a history and politics degree in arts, so I actually got to do something worthwhile as part of this. It was one module, but it was a very worthwhile module.
Beat me to it, Dan.
Yeah, history of sport. So taking a subject you think and then going right back to the birth of it. But I was just going to say that something like the Grand National and the Derby and these races, even the Ascot stuff, it goes back to the 1800s. When you think the Football League and some of the pillars, the World Cup 1930, yet some of the racing traditions like the National and stuff go back so far, ridiculously far. And obviously there's more to come. I'll be interested. I'll be tuning into that.
Shane Hannon's joined us in studio as well for the news round. If I was to mention the words you see, Donnybrook Fair to you, Dan, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say Donnybrook Fair?
Definitely some kind of fancy sauce or cheese or something that you wouldn't get in your regular supermarket.
A sandwich that probably costs you north of a tenner.
That glass, maybe the glass Dan has is probably Donnybrook Fair.
Fancy glass.
Everything would be sun-dried or something like that in the sandwich.
Sun-dried cheese.
It wouldn't be the old ham and cheese, sort of the grated cheese or whatever. There'd definitely be a description. There'd be an adjective before every ingredient in the sandwich.
Donnybrook Fair was one of the main epicentres of race days and all that goes along with it back in the day. Saying in Paul's notes, there's plentiful evidence that it had a magnificent wildness to it before 1800. The ale tents and whiskey cellars facilitated drunkenness on an epic scale. Donnybrook Fair was used by rival factions in Dublin as the backdrop for riot.
Really?
No fancy sandwiches back then, I tell you.
No, you wouldn't get a riot there now. Maybe over the last avocado or something.
Yeah.
There'd be a scrum.
In 1695, the Trinity College student George Farquhar, later a novelist, was one of several students involved in a riot at Donnybrook Fair, not the shop we might add. His involvement cost him his exhibition award of £4 a year, though this was restored within months. To what extent did this violence emerge from sport? At least one stage there was a competition of cudgel playing, apparently it's fighting with sticks, where men fought each other for the prize of a hat.
Right. Well, I mean, a hat was a commodity.
A decent hat.
Of some standing.
How many pints is an epic scale of pints? I wonder. What's the figure there?
I think 3 is probably the official title, but I'm guessing their measure was slightly different.
Yeah, it's slightly more.
The 1600 category of binge drinking was slightly more loose, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's back in the day. It's just this bacchanalian excess. It's just people just lying in hedgerows.
Yeah, that's like how to imagine.
Pretty much how you imagine Fela back in the early 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
For people who are there to remind us of.
The UCD shooting bar in the early 2000s when Ireland were playing Iran that day.
I'd heard.
That was the day.
My mate once got kicked out of the UCD shooting bar for putting on Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys 6 times in a row. Were you there at the time?
That's fair.
I know. I wasn't there at the time, but I know someone who committed a similar crime.
What did he do? You don't have to name names. What was the crime?
I think it was an ABBA medley, but it kept repeating. So like the first time, the good-natured crowd enjoyed it, but by the fourth version of, I can't think, it might have been SOS or something, but a fourth rendition of that, the barman had it jumped over and plugged it out. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, it's a healthy reminder on Off the Ball to not abuse the use of different kind of record players and
be good to your jukeboxes.
Be good to your jukeboxes, that's all I have to say. We're awash, obviously, in World Cup nostalgia, given the time of year that it is. It's, we're talking about 25 years, obviously, last night since USA 94. Today, the 19th of June, it is 45 years to the day since this piece of brilliance happened at the 74 World Cup.
Cruyff making ground to get himself under that. Oh, a beautiful dummy from Cruyff. Lovely flick across.
Yes, indeed. Apparently on this day in 1974, the Cruyff turn was born.
Oh.
Yeah, against Sweden in the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund. And there was Johan schooling the Swedish defenders in the art of trickery.
Yeah.
Do you know what I found out today?
Go on.
Johan Cruyff is nothing but a thief. He's dead. He can't sue me.
Fair.
Yeah.
I found this out today. Tom Williams, the football journalist, tweeted this earlier on, that the Cruyff turn was not, in fact, the invention of Johan Cruyff, but of one Eulogio Martinez, Paraguayan striker he's not even the first Barcelona player, Cruyff, to pull off such a turn.
But someone named it after Cruyff, that's the thing. Is that like the Icelandic clap thing, which didn't actually had origins elsewhere?
Exactly. And even Johan Cruyff's official account, which is managing to tweet from beyond the grave today, is saying that he invented the Cruyff turn, when in fact some 14 years previously, back in 1960, in a game against Wolves, Eulogio Martinez
turn has a nice ring to it as well. It's not the worst.
It's not. It's
when
a good
pronounced
name
properly, like Richie has pronounced it.
Eulogio Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
See, but like, Martinez actually meant there's newsreel footage from the time from a game against Wolves. I think it was in the Fairs Cup, where he pulls it off like about 4 times against the Wolves fullback. Like absolutely makes a tart out of him. It was also thought of at the time that Cruyff, do you know the two-touch penalty? He apparently did that when he was a Feyenoord. Northern Irish invented that.
Johan.
Going back to the late 50s.
Yeah, but like, do you think Martinez was even the first person to do that particular
No, of course
trick?
he wasn't.
Like Paul Rouse could tell you there used to be games of folk football but around 400 aside back in the day. I'm sure someone at one point
did a Cruyff
tried to do a Cruyff turn, but just didn't have a name at that particular window.
With a ball that weighed 4 stone.
4 stone, like, and it was actually made out of someone who had died several weeks previously, and like there was there was a war kind of concocted.
Yeah,
this was part of it.
That used to happen. The losing team, their goalkeeper from the week prior, used to be sacrificed and his stomach inflated and used for the ball for the next game.
Yeah, listen, I'm pretty sure I saw that in Gladiator or something. So
It's
must have been true.
It's probably not true. Gladiator, one of the best movies of all time, as we know, Shane.
Of course.
Shane, where are we starting the Newsround tonight?
We'll start with the rugby, I think, Richie. The draw for the pool stages of next season's European Champions Cup took place earlier in Lausanne. Munster handed the group of death, really, Pool 4, alongside reigning champions Saracens, who lifted their 3rd European crown in Newcastle, of course, last month. Simon Zebo and Donnacha Ryan's Racing 92 and the Ospreys are also in that pool. Leo Cullen's Leinster are in Pool 1 with Lyon, Northampton Saints, who, of course, they beat in the 2011 European Decider, and Italians Benetton. Ulster will meet Clermont Auvergne, Harlequins and Bath in Pool 3. Connacht back in the competition, of course, for the first time in 3 years. They are set to be in Pool 5 alongside Toulouse, Gloucester and Montpellier. The other group of 4, Pool 2, sees top seeds Exeter Chiefs with Glasgow Warriors, Ronan O'Gara's La Rochelle and Sale Sharks.
We've been denied the reuniting of Munster and La Rochelle and Ronan so far. Kind of breaking news, I guess, in the last half hour as well, that World Rugby, this plan for the Nations Championship that they'd had is, I think, died a death, I think 2 days before they'd initially thought it would do. Friday, I think we were expecting an announcement on this one, and we got it tonight.
Yeah, plans have been scrapped for that Nations Championship. As you said, Richie, they were seeking unanimous support, World Rugby, from the 6 Nations countries and indeed the 4 teams from the Rugby Championship to move forward with these plans. The proposed new format would have launched in 2022, with the 6 Nations winners facing off with the top team from an expanded 6-team Rugby Championship. World Rugby, though, have said they reached a reluctant decision to discontinue plans for the Nations Championship after the required unanimous agreement by unions to enter into exclusive negotiations was not achieved by the deadline.
Yeah, I don't think this is too much of a surprise for anybody. At this time last night, Dan, we were sat here talking about the rather favourable draws for Irish sides in Europe. They suddenly look a whole lot trickier.
Yeah, if Dundalk get past Riga FC in that Champions League first qualifying round, they will have Karabag of Azerbaijan or the Albanian side Partizani Tirana in the next round. Dundalk would, of course, be at home first in that tie if they were to progress. Karabag, of course, course, will be familiar to Arsenal and Chelsea fans after their stints in the Europa League and indeed the Champions League at one point. The loser of that Dundalk-Riga game will meet the loser of Bate Borisov versus Piast Gliwice in the second qualifying round of the Europa League, after that was drawn as well this morning. Celtic's reward, meanwhile, for seeing off FK Sarajevo of Bosnia in their first round, if they can do that, would be a meeting with Nome Kalju from Estonia or KF Skendia, North Macedonian team. So a couple of unfamiliar names there, but yeah, Celtic will probably be happier than perhaps Dundalk.
We truly will find ourselves witnessing a new era when Dundalk have to play Bate Borisov, but Stephen Kenny doesn't have to say the name. Because it's just ingrained in my head. If you do a Stephen Kenny impression, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Bate Borisov.
Yeah, that wasn't quite your best. I think you can do it again.
Bate Borisov then.
Yeah, that was definitely much better the second time.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I think the Dundalk draw generally,
it's going to be a dog really at some stage.
There was probably no good option in the next round. You know, if they get past Riga, which I still think is a big if. I know you said the draws are favourable, but I still need to be convinced a small bit about the draws being favourable.
Devo outside was going through the Riga setup. I know it's kind of, you know, we're kind of going on paper and stuff like that, but they're not the most settled of sides. I think they've been through like something like 30 managers.
Oh yeah, loads of managers. It's a new club. A lot of players have been around the place. Like a Japanese player, a Brazilian player. They have, you know, Serbs, Georgian, Albania. They could be anything really. But the one thing is that once they got beyond, if they can get beyond that tie, there was no easy option like Karabag more than likely. But the real killer for them is the whole consolation was, you know, if you lose your first Champions League tie, at least you get a nice Europa League parachute, probably against a weak enough team so you can push on in that competition. The fact that they now play the loser of that Bate Piast Gliwice, who are like the Polish champions, that's rough. So they just basically have to beat Riga now. That's a massive game for them on so many levels.
And they were talking, John Cotter was talking to Red FM after their draw as well. Like, still, obviously they don't know who they're going to get, and we'll get to Cork in a moment, but he was talking about in terms of travel, they were either going to be going to Luxembourg or to
Wales.
Wales. But where a lot of the sides, it's like Norrköping, it's Bran, a lot of the Irish sides don't have to go too far. You get into the notion of having to go to Karabag, and suddenly that's throwing a spanner in.
Yeah, although it probably is. Although I would say, like, there's probably other clubs that have a very small violin for Dundalk in that respect, because they have like a fair bit of money. They will charter. They can afford. They'll be chartering flights, I think, to wherever they go this year. Whereas I'm not sure about all the other clubs. Will they do scheduled, or can they all do a charter for each game? And funnily enough, a charter going long distance or short distance, there might be not a dramatic difference once you're actually chartering, you know, once you commit to it. But yeah, I mean, we've heard the stories about going to Baku recently from Arsenal and Chelsea fans. So I'm sure there's a lot of Dundalk fans, if they got through, they will not be going to the next tie. Yeah, Riga's a different animal.
We'll save the sob stories for when we have to go to Baku for a Euro 2020 quarter-final or semi-final.
Well, that's it, yeah. That's coming.
4 days notice.
That's coming. That's the real problem, yeah. That's the real problem.
When we eventually get there.
Which of course we will.
Yeah.
Of course, this is the one thing we're so worried about the succession plan, because obviously Ireland are going to succeed. We all watched the Gibraltar game. What are we going to do when we get to the quarterfinals?
We're in for a potential bit of crack in the Europa League, it seems, though, Shane.
Could be brilliant. Cork City could be set for a second qualifying round tie in the Europa League with Stephen Gerrard's Rangers, no less. It'll be either the Scots or St Joseph's from Gibraltar, should the Leesiders progress from round one. There they face the winners of the game between Progress Niederkorn of Luxembourg or Cardiff Metropolitan University. So that could be a cracking tie.
I mean, the problem is with this, I wish Cork were a bit better this year, because Cork of last year, the year before, I'd really fancy them to get through this tie and set up this Rangers tie. I really would, and maybe it'll give them a motivation. But now any excitement about it needs to be stuck with the caveat of it's a really big if they get through.
Yeah, Progress are no mugs.
No, Progress have beaten Rangers 2 years ago, so that would actually be a very bizarre grudge match between Rangers and a small team in Luxembourg. But yeah, like Cork 2 years ago, I would have expected them to get through this, you know, and set up this scenario. At the moment, it's hard to be confident. But can you imagine those Cork players now, though? Their season's in a bit of a lull.
Something definitely built towards.
They can do better. Yeah. And all of a sudden, imagine this massive, they could be going to Ibrox in a couple of weeks to play Rangers, which in itself would be a colourful occasion for the people of a security persuasion.
Yeah, to be memories of what was it, 84?
84 Bros Rangers, and then Shell's Rangers in, 98, where they couldn't even play the game in Dublin. Yeah. They played the game in Prenton Park, and Shell's went 3-0 up and lost 5-3 in a batshit game.
Is that on YouTube? I need to watch that again.
Oh, do you remember this game?
Yeah, I remember it, yeah.
It was the same time that Pats got Celtic, and it was very regionalised to a very small degree. But like
Pats Celtic one jumps out. I think that was in Lansdowne, wasn't it?
No, Pats Celtic was in
Friendly.
Celtic Park first, and Richmond, or no, Talca Park the second leg, because Talca Park was the souped-up venue of the era. Talca was the good front room of the day. You know?
Theatre.
So, and Chelsea played Rangers in the UEFA Cup at the same time. Like, they were both back-to-back the same week. And I remember it as a kid, sort of, it was a strange event. Going to Pat Celtic with a load of dubs there supporting
There's
Celtic.
a piece in that there now.
I think there is.
There is a piece in that.
Yeah.
Pats themselves, as you mentioned, Shane?
Yeah, they take on the winners of Dinamo Minsk and Latvian side Liepaja if they beat IFK Norrköping, the Swedes, in their first qualifying round tie in the Europa League. Shamrock Rovers then could face either Cypriots Apollon Limassol or the Lithuanian side Žalgiris in round 2 if they beat the Norwegians SK Brann, and that's a big if as well.
A couple of comments in already, and you can keep them coming wherever you happen to be streaming if you're looking at us online or elsewhere. Someone on YouTube from AOC 2017, if this is actually Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I'm going to be heartbroken, simply says, shocking shirt, Richard. I think anything that distracts from the face is probably good in my instance. And someone via text on 53106 asking, did Shane cut up one of his granny's nighties to make that shirt? I feel like I've been invited to an early 80s cocktail party.
You see,
Jimmy.
Ordinarily my wardrobe is fairly offensive as it comes, but today, when I knew I was going to be on live stream, you reach back to the back of the wardrobe, pick the most offensive T-shirt you can possibly find and stick it on. But yeah, it's...
Whose wardrobe was it?
For the yeah, it was my granny's. But no, for the radio listeners, it's a navy T-shirt with purple and yellow flowers.
Yeah.
Maybe violet or indigo, I don't know.
And a lot of them.
A lot of them.
We've both gone floral. Dan's gone plain, which is probably the safer option.
I didn't realise it was a some bizarre fancy dress.
You should see Steve outside. Steve was wearing a Magic Eye picture for a T-shirt. It's great. Dress up day in here. A bit of breaking news from the FAI that actually came literally just as you're about to go on air, which was I think the 15th statement in God knows how long.
15th?
At least.
This week.
And a statement from SFAI Chairman John Early came in just before we went to air saying, in light of recent events and after much discussion with my family and others, I regretfully confirm my resignation from the board of the Football Association of Ireland and as chair of the FAI Underage Committee with immediate effect. My time on the board, which came via my election as chair of the FAI Underage Committee, has given me the opportunity to work alongside some excellent people within and outside football in Ireland and elsewhere. To the board, my colleagues, members of the FAI Underage Committee, and both past and present, and to the staff at Abbottstown, I wish to extend my thanks. Then goes on to list some of his achievements and wishes all those working still in the FAI the best going forward. But another developments, what do we do from Dan?
I don't know. Yeah, it's still sort of, as you said, it's only broken there in the last while. So I suppose, following up on it, I suppose the context of this is the board was 11. It was an 11-person board in March. It's now 7 between John Delaney stepping aside and then Michael Cody and Eddie Murray resigning and now also John Early resigning. So you're down to 7. Now the rest of them are all actually meant to resign or step down at the AGM at the end of July, although there's suggestions that a couple are going to seek re-election. But maybe the context of this, and you referred to it briefly in the statement there, the John Early statement, that there's a governance review group report meant to be basically completed by Friday, and that's going to recommend the shape of a new board going forward. And what's clear is that John Early, from what he's heard, from what's coming down the tracks, obviously doesn't satisfy him. He doesn't like, it would appear, what he's heard with regard to what might be happening. There was reports last week about, in our paper and a couple of papers, about what the likely new makeup of the board might be. This new board of maybe 12 people, there has to be a gender quotas need to be addressed, so at least 4 females, maybe 4 independent directors. So the old board as we know it is probably done anyway, but clearly John Early has decided now to resign rather than to step down with everyone else at the AGM. It
seems like this report on Friday is probably needed because we've been operating in something of a vacuum for the past number of weeks.
Yeah.
There's, shadow appointments and Noel Mooney's involvement, and don't necessarily know what's going to actually happen at the AGM and who's coming and who's going, who's actually paying John Delaney's wages, who isn't. It's...
Yeah, it is a bit. You need something concrete to build it around. But at the same time, I wouldn't be building up this thing either. Like, this is just recommendations that need to be voted on. So this is like 5 people who've said, well, here's what we should do. But then the next challenge is actually getting people to agree to this. So like John Early's from the Schoolboys Football Association of Ireland. He's not maybe happy with some stuff from here. I'm speculating here a bit, but obviously they would have representatives on council. Are they going to be unhappy with this? Are they going to vote against this, for example? You know, these are fair questions to ask. But I take your point. Like, we are floating along a small bit in FAI land, and people want answers. But at the same time, I would also say that this can't be rushed either. So unfortunately, it probably has to drag, even if that for everyone else is a bit of a.
We need a good Congress, just like the GAA. Something to point towards every year.
That's what the AGM probably should be. I don't really like Congress. I see lads updating Congress, and it seems to be like, you know, and now we move on to motion 412, you know, and like this has come through. Let's debate, you know, what should we do about the length of half-time break somewhere? And everyone's like, great. And it seems to be a debate or a vote or something on it. Like the FAI land, I'd be very jealous of this, you know, because
the last few AGMs have just been essentially like, this is all great, everything's fine.
Nothing.
And now, yeah.
AOB is lunch has been served in here right now. You know, this is what happens. Yeah. So now the Congress seems to be at times, it's the other end of the scale in terms of the amount of stuff. It seems to be a grueler for people that are reporting from it.
But it's nicely mechanical in a way.
But at the same time, listen, there's probably flaws with Congress that people who know the GA will tell me about. But it does appear to be at least more of a talking shop, more of a debating forum. Whereas for the last 12, 13, 14 AGMs, the ones I've been at, there's been no debate at all. No one's standing up to make a name for themselves, other than to make statements to praising glorious leadership.
Speaking of leadership, the Leinster Council, how many are they expecting for Sunday?
Yeah, between 40 and 45,000 fans expected to attend Sunday's provincial senior football decider. Of course, between Dublin and Meath. Dubs bidding for a 14th Delaney Cup in 15 years. Over 62,000 supporters attended the last Dubs Meath final back in 2014. There's also, of course, the Munster football final between Kerry and Cork, as well as a full complement of round 2 qualifier games this Saturday and Sunday, with Mayo versus Down in Newry at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. Expected to be a pretty decent affair. Speaking on OTB AM this morning, former Meath star Anthony Moyles said he feels Mayo are vulnerable heading into this one.
I think there are the embers are there of the thing, but that for me, you know, I was thinking during the year, yeah, he's bringing really experienced guys on at the end of a game. That's a good idea because they'll finish the game and they have the experience and all of that stuff. But unless those guys are, you know, not happy about doing that and they want to be back at the very start. I see too many of them. I see Boyle, I see Andy Moran, I see different fellas, I see Vaughan, I see all these guys who have been there so many times, they've gone to the well so many times, they have ultimately failed so many times, right? And he's going again and again and again, and he's asking them to do these jobs, and I just don't think it is there. Yeah. I think they're very, very vulnerable at the weekend.
Yep, that's Anthony Moyles there speaking on OTB AM, our daily sports breakfast show, every weekday morning from 7:30 on our Facebook, YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah, cheers Shane. Off the Ball is heading off for some winter sun and top-class golf. We want you to join us, the Off the Ball crew, along with very special guests Kevin Kilban, Kieran Donaghy, Peter Lorry and more are taking on 2 of the best courses on the planet. The Yas Links, named after the Broad City statement, and the National for the first ever Off the Ball Open this November. If 5 nights in a 4-star hotel at Peter Lorry Golf Clinic, a gala dinner and a world famous Off the Ball Roadshow this November 17th to 23rd in Abu Dhabi sounds like your kind of thing, then sign up now at offtheball.com/open. Something of a surprise and something not necessarily a surprise from Spain today, Shane. Luis Enrique quitting.
Yeah, he's left the role for personal reasons as Spain manager. He won 8 out of his 10 games in charge. That was during an 11-month tenure. The ex-Barcelona manager has missed the last 3 Spain matches due to those undisclosed personal matters. His assistant, Robert Moreno, has taken over the job. It was Moreno in the national team dugout for those recent wins against Malta, the Faroe Islands and Sweden. Bit of a surprise.
Given the fact that he hasn't been there for the last 3 games, I guess it's not really a surprise that he's decided to step aside, but also it's Luis Enrique stepping aside from the Spanish manager's job. This is pretty big.
Oh, I'd imagine in Spain it's a massive story, especially given the recent history of the Spanish manager's job. So I mean, I don't know what personal matters. You just sort of.
It's all very quiet,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure maybe people there have more of an inkling of what's going on here. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. But yeah, I suppose it is a massive vote of confidence in the assistant to be given the reins. All
right, Shane, thanks very much. Dan, thank you for coming in as well. Loads to come still on the show. On the way, we'll be talking to Dominic Fifield about what's going on at Chelsea. We'll also, as we mentioned earlier, be taking an in-depth deep dive into the history of horse racing with Paul Rouse. And up next, we talk to the Dublin hurling manager, Matty Kenny.
Off the Ball on News Talk. News Talk Breakfast.
Lettuce, tomato and red onion are a must, but for me sauce is key.
And your favourite sauce?
Magic burger sauce.
From McDonald's.
I was going to say 4 Lights. Do you remember the 4 Lanterns? They used to do the big 4 sauce.
What's wrong with tomato
Big
ketchup now?
Oh no, it need a little bit of something else, like a little bit of mayo as well. But it has to be doused in sauce. That's key for me.
Alright, Vincent. Keep it simple. Burgers.
Favourite topping?
Yeah.
Second burger.
Alright.